This is a very, very sad, tragic, unexpected case, as so many of them are. And I'll say right from the start that my heart goes out to the victim and all of her friends and family. She, in my opinion, was a truly, truly giving person. And it's just so, so tragic the way things turned out here. So this is the case of Denise Hallowell. This case occurred in July of 2019 in a town called Inverness, Florida. Denise Hallowell was born in 1962. She was adopted and she was raised in Florida. She had a happy childhood. She was said to be a fun, outgoing, athletic person who loved animals. She ultimately became a veterinary technician, and after some time doing that, she went back to school and became a school teacher. She got married 2 times, but for whatever reason, the marriages didn't work out, and she was divorced. To show you what a fun, spontaneous type of person she was, just wanted to mention that one of her marriages was done skydiving. Yeah. You know, like you do your vows as you're jumping out of the plane. That's really, really something. You don't hear about that much. Anyway, even though she was single, she really wanted to have kids. And since adoption had been such a positive experience for her, having been adopted, she decided she would like to adopt a child and give her love to a child in need. So she found a child in Guatemala who was 4 years old, and she went over there and she adopted him. His name was Carlos, and she took him back to her home in Florida, and they started off doing wonderfully. They bonded really well. They truly loved each other. Neighbors were jealous of how great their relationship was. And Carlos was turning into just a wonderful, wonderful child. In fact, some called him her golden child. He was smart, athletic. He was polite, well-mannered. In school, he got wonderful grades. And they were truly the picture of a happy mother and son. Now, Denise felt that she needed to have a second child as well, especially because she wanted Carlos to have a sibling. So she found a boy named Angel in Honduras, peaceful. And this was actually a home that had belonged to her family. And she had ultimately moved into it. And they really enjoyed it there, where they were able to do things like fishing and outdoor activities, and it was just really, wholesome. So, as I was saying, Angel moved in, things seemed good. Now, of course, with all of these true crime cases, somewhere something is going to go wrong. So when Carlos was 11, he started drinking alcohol. By the time he was 13, he was on all kinds of drugs. You name it. Meth, cocaine, marijuana, ecstasy, and the alcohol. He wound up in a mental health facility at this point and was diagnosed as being bipolar. Now, to make matters even worse, Angel was also exhibiting some serious problems. He was prone to fits of rage, and he was known to run away at times. And Denise just did not know what to do at this point. She was truly in over her head. One day, when Angel was 12, he ran away. And she called 911. He ultimately was found shortly after, but the police came anyway and they took a look at the home. They looked at Angel's bedroom and they found that his window was nailed shut. His door had a bolt that you could lock from the outside. He was sleeping on an air mattress, which was on a metal frame, and there was a bucket beside his bed to be used as a toilet, and the room was pretty bare. Like, there wasn't much in there. So they were thinking, Denise, she must be abusing this boy and probably the other one as well. And when they interviewed Angel, he said that his mother locks him in his room. She makes him use the bucket for a toilet. She slaps him in the face. And she makes him clean the bathroom without any clothes on. Now, they arrested Denise and they took the boys away. And she had been working as a school teacher, and she lost that job due to what was going on. Now, she explained that she was not abusing him. She had to do these things to protect him from himself, to keep him from running away, and also to keep him from hurting himself in these violent rages. That's why his room didn't have, any stuff in it. And she also needed to keep him away from her and Carlos when he got into those moods, because he was violent with them. And then they spoke to Carlos, and he defended his mother, saying she never abused them. The Now, you wouldn't think it from talking to him or looking at him. He looks like a clean-cut, very nice young man. He speaks very maturely, he sounds very intelligent, very charming. Nothing about him suggests that he is a drug user or dealer whatsoever. He had been on the football team. He had a very nice girlfriend who got along well with Denise. And her parents liked Carlos as well. But then things started happening in the neighborhood, or the immediate neighbors were finding some unfortunate things going on. For example, one neighbor said that her chickens had been killed, her cat had been cut in half, and she had a goat that was missing. And it was believed that it had something to do with all these unusual cars that kept coming and going in the night. And everyone was kind of scared in the area. So Denise, she put up a security system, a camera outside the house, and 3 inside the house. In January of 2019, Carlos got kicked out of school. But he didn't tell his mother, and nobody told her, oddly enough. And she did not find out until May of 2019. He's about 17 at this time, and she's about 57. So when she found out that he had been expelled, she was beside herself, so disappointed. And they were arguing all the time now about his life. What was he doing? What's going on? And these arguments were so loud that the neighbors could hear. And like I said, they lived in like a foresty, kind of a rural-ish area. So the neighbors weren't like on top of each other, but they could hear these two screaming. And around that time, Carlos went to live with a couple, an adult couple. I'm not quite sure if they were his friends or Denise's friends or some combination, but they were a full-fledged adult couple who agreed to take him in for a little while due to all this fighting. And I was able to listen to some audio of some arguments going on in this home. So what had happened was Carlos was living and she had told him he was a disappointment and wished that she had never adopted him. And they went home and they had some pie, and she went to take a nap. Now, several hours later, it was around sometime after 6 p.m., 911 receives a call from Carlos. And of course, he's in hysterics. He said that he woke up from a nap. They had both been napping. He heard his dogs barking, so he got up and he found his mother, Denise, in her bed with an axe in the back of her head. And he didn't see anyone around, but somebody must have broken in. So the police came, the EMT came. She was still alive when they got there, but not conscious, and she died shortly after. They looked outside, they looked everywhere for a potential suspect, and they didn't find anybody. They got, they called in everybody that they needed to call in. They got people on foot, people in the air, looking for this potential murderer. The axe belonged to them. It had been in the shed, I think. So they took Carlos down to the police station. They interviewed him a bit to find out, what there was to find out. Did she have enemies? This, that, and the other? Did she have a boyfriend? What's the story? And he said he really couldn't think of anybody except Angel. Maybe it was Angel. He had been out of their house for 4 years, I believe, at that point. But he said this is what happened with Angel. And maybe he's still angry. I don't know. So they took Carlos over to his girlfriend's house and asked if Carlos can live there for a little while they're figuring things out. But her parents said no. They didn't like the idea. So they took him to the neighbor's house, and she agreed to take him in. So now they went to do their job and figure out who had killed Denise. So first they look into Angel because it sounds like a plausible idea. But he was in prison. He had been arrested for armed robbery, and he was in prison. So I guess he was around 15 at that time. Carlos, like I said, he was 17, and Denise had been 57. So they cross Angel off the list of suspects. Now they check out the home. They looked for her cell phone, because oftentimes you can find out things on the cell phone, like who she was talking to, if she had a boyfriend, things like that. They couldn't find it. But by the way they took Carlos's cell phone, he agreed that they could have it to look at. And they had sent it off to whoever, researches cell phone technology. And that was going to take some time. So meanwhile they look around the house. They found a camera outside, which was not working. They found manuals are these cameras? So, people in the neighborhood were scared out of their wits. They're thinking there's an axe murderer on the loose here. And axe murderers are not as common as we are led to believe. You know, in true crime cases, we hear about axe murderers quite a bit, but it's not a common thing. Not at all. So, the police got a dive team to check out the lake to see if anything of interest would be in there, because there was a lake, you know, not far from their house on their property. And the water was very murky, but they got lucky. It didn't take them long to find her cell phone and 3 of these little cameras. And everything was destroyed by the water, but they had to send it to the lab to see what they could get out of it. And what they did find was the time when the phone was tossed into the lake. It was 6:18. They didn't get any images or anything useful from the phone or the cameras. So, that much they knew. Then they got the information from Carlos's phone. And that gave them a lot more information. Now, he had said he was taking a nap from the time after they finished the pie until he woke up and found her around 6. But they found that his phone was on and active, that he wasn't asleep, he was using it. They could see he had switched from one, site to another. Not something that you're doing in your sleep. Then his phone pinged all through the house and outside, giving them like a full map of exactly where he had moved from second to second. Like even in the house, like foot by foot, which is amazing. One of the things it showed was that he was outside in front of the lake at the same time that Denise's phone went into the lake. So what does that suggest? So they called him back in. And at first he's telling his same old story. And then they said to him, alright, well, we got your phone back and here's the situation. They told him they knew everywhere that he was. They knew he must have thrown the phone in the lake. They knew he wasn't sleeping. So he said, alright, you know what? I do remember throwing her phone and the cameras in the lake. I don't know why I did it. I remember holding the axe. I don't remember anything else. So he was arrested. And he was charged with first-degree murder. They felt that it was premeditated because they found that he had sharpened the axe in his bedroom ahead of time, which shows that he had had at least a little bit of thought of what he was doing. And they felt he was motivated by all their arguing, all her rules, and her making him feel, bad when she said that he was a disappointment and all that sort of thing. That was his motivation, and he planned it. Now, his lawyer tried, at the very least, to make it a manslaughter charge. So they weren't denying what he had done. But since he was 17, he was tried as an adult, but because he was 17, they have to review his case. And that won't be until 2044. So at that point, a judge will decide if he might get parole. Now, after all this was done, he gave a jailhouse interview to Dateline. And he pretty much explained that what had happened was exactly what I already told you, that they had been arguing in the car and she made him feel really bad about himself. And when she took a nap, he went outside to do some yard work with the axe. He got to thinking about killing her with the axe because he was so angry. He went inside and he did it, basically in a nutshell. And he said that he deserves the prison sentence that he got because, in his words, he said, if you take a life, you owe a life. So that is the case. What do you think? I'll tell you a little bit of what I'm thinking. Of course, I think it is so tragic that Denise lost her life in this horrible way to the son who she took in to give him a better life. Granted, she wasn't perfect. And who is perfect? She had it rough, let's be real. She was a single mother. At one point, she had 2 boys. Neither one of them was making it easy for her. Both of them had major issues. And you'd like to think she would be perfect and say all the right things and do all the right things as if she were a professional psychologist, but that's just not realistic. And although she should have reached out for some serious help from outside, she didn't, or she didn't get the help she needed. And this is how it all turned out. So, that is mostly what I'm thinking. Regardless of whatever mental illnesses or personality disorders Carlos had, it doesn't excuse him, and I guess everyone is aware of that. The jury was aware of that. Even he was aware of it, saying, he got the right sentence. And there was some talk of both boys, him and Angel, possibly having reactive attachment disorder, in that neither one of them properly attached when they were in their infancy, when they were babies. And that may have led to a lot of these psychological problems. That may well be, but that doesn't excuse murder, of course. I guess that's something, that could have happened. We don't know. Maybe somebody knows, but we don't know what their lives were like prior to adoption. Could have been very, very awful. That could have been a major contributing factor to the way both of their lives turned out. So what can we learn here? I guess the main thing is, when you're in over your head, when you know you're in a dangerous situation, when you're telling people, take care of my dogs if anything happens, that's the time to really, really make some changes. Do whatever it is that you need to do yourself.